The week he started with overhauling our air traffic control system in this country. He went to Ohio and talked about tax reform, Obamacare, and some infrastructure there as well. Today, this is a focus on the $1 trillion infrastructure plan that he wants to put into place. That was the Roads, Rails, and Regulatory Relief Roundtable that he was attending there. And of course, he was standing in front of the backdrop of the Department of Transportation. It's interesting timing now because it comes on the heels of the president going on the offense on the record, firing back after James Comey's explosive testimony. The president says he feels total vindication as he blasts the former FBI director for being a leaker. And we expect more heat from the president when he holds a joint news conference at the White House later this afternoon. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Meghan McCain. Host of Kennedy on Fox Business, Kennedy herself. Anchor of the Intelligence Report, bringing us intelligence, Trish Regan. That never gets old. Today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, veteran reporter and correspondent at large. Fox News, Geraldo Rivera is outnumbered.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah, so the president kind of driving home his narrative. We're going to talk about it.
I wish he had started with infrastructure instead of the kamikaze mission known as healthcare. He would have gotten bipartisan support. He is a great builder, a legendary builder. That's when I met him. He was just taking over the Commodore Hotel. It was filled with junkies and prostitutes. He made it the Grand Hyatt, remade 42nd Street. Eric and I lived in his
Well, my mom says it's never too late for success.
It's never too late.
Let's get to the news.
He's a builder.
The president is not holding back, and perhaps a preview of what we can expect when he holds that joint news conference later today. President Trump took James Comey to task in his first response to yesterday's hearing. He tweeted early this morning, quote, "Despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication. And wow, Comey is a leaker." The president referred to Comey's stunning revelation that he orchestrated a leak to a reporter of a memo he wrote regarding detailed conversations he had had with the president. According to Fox News sources, the president's personal attorney, Mark Kasowitz, plans to file a complaint with the Justice Department's Inspector General and the Senate Judiciary Committee. White House correspondent Kevin Corke is here live. Boy, this story just gets more and more interesting hour by hour.
Oh, no doubt. Curiouser and curiouser, as it has been said before. Listen, the White House, Harris, is expressing, frankly, righteous indignation after it turned out, as we all learned at the very same time, that the former FBI director is, in fact, a leaker to the press. That admission, obviously, in that 2-hour and 40-minute hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday, riveting stuff. Comey admitting that he shared memos with a Columbia University professor with the express intent of having them leaked to the press in order to spur the creation of a special counsel. And that has the White House up in arms, as you can well imagine. And I should also point out, a few lawmakers are now questioning Comey's judgment.
He could have come before us or Judiciary Committee and disclosed their existence and turned them over, but he chose instead a surprising route for someone who understandably has railed against others who have disclosed government documents.
I think the director should have come to the public directly himself or come to Congress and made those statements and clarified the record and not gone through a third party.
Bipartisan ridicule of the former director's decision. Meanwhile, the president's private attorney, as you pointed out, Mark Kasowitz, laid out a pretty forceful and some would say a compelling case yesterday that, if anything, Comey's hearing proved what they've been saying all along. The president's not a subject of the Russia investigation, never asked Comey to stop that investigation, and never demanded his loyalty to him. Now, I think it's also important to point out that the formal complaint that Kasowitz's team is expected to file to the DOJ's IG, that's the Department of Justice Inspector General, could come as early as next week, and that's our expectation here, again, based on what sources are telling Fox News. And don't forget, we're going to hear from the president himself. First, on-camera comments since the explosive hearing yesterday. That's coming your way today at 2:45 here in the Rose Garden. I can't wait. We'll have live coverage for you right here on Fox News. But for now, back to you.
We would never forget that we're going to see that. And you again, Kevin Corke. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. So a few hours ago, when you and I last saw each other on Fox and Friends, we didn't know what the options might look like that they would maybe go for Kasowitz, the president's attorney. Now we do. a formal complaint.
Formal complaint to the Department of Justice, as there should be. I mean, my goodness, here we are. We're prosecuting this, what's her name, reality winner, the 25-year-old, for leaking an NSA document. At the same time, the former director of the FBI admits that he was a leaker. And believe me, if he leaked this one big bombshell, this is not the first time. He's not a novice at this. And you wonder really about, the integrity. Is he just another player, this great shrinking dork? He's just another Washington player, another guy in the swamp?
A 6'7", what did you call him?
Shrinking dork.
Kennedy, part of the criticism today is coming because Comey didn't just give this to a friend. He gave it to a friend who's a professional communicator in this regard. I mean, he was a consultant to the DOJ. This was not just a buddy that he met at the University of Columbia. And then he went on ahead and told the media.
Oh, Lordy, I hope he told the media. Lordy, Jim, what a sanctimonious fool. I mean, he really undermined his entire story, his entire narrative with that one admission yesterday, and it didn't take a lot to get that out of him. But the most curious thing for me was that he felt obligated to spur this special counsel. He thought that it was incumbent upon him to use, this surreptitious method, which he had soundly criticized in front of Congress in the past. And he is the one who had condemned leakers in every arena. And he himself had no problem laying out exactly how he did it. He didn't see anything wrong with it, yet he continues to take the moral high road in every other aspect, including essentially calling the president a liar.
Wow, I'm writing down these names. Sanctimonious fool was one that you just used. Remember, not too long ago, the Democrats had their own names for him because they wanted him out. And now this has turned into such a political dance as they say, oh, no, it's so untoward for you to want to push him out. Megan?
Well, I still don't understand, and it hasn't been clear to me why Comey didn't go to his superiors when he thought President Trump's behavior and comments were inappropriate. If if you work at McDonald's and somebody says something inappropriate to you, you're talking to your supervisor about it. This is not a hard thing to jump to. He's the head of the FBI. In regards to him leaking his own personal information through this weird channel, his friend that works at Columbia University, I think it's not only bizarre, but I think it raises a lot of red flags. Like you said, Geraldo, this is not his first rodeo. This can't be the first time it's been leaked. And again, I've been very skeptical about this entire thing. But one thing we do know is President Trump wasn't under investigation by the FBI for colluding with Russia. That, by the way, should be the big PowerPoint on this.
I was just going to say, we need to shout that out.
100%. And secondly, we have now been given reason. If President Trump knew that Comey was a leaker and it was known within the White House, he now has reason for his firing, which at the time to a lot of the American public, it looked like it was questioning because he was possibly,
would have known that.
And he would have known that.
But he would know.
So not only do I think he didn't do as great of a job as maybe liberals want to spin it, I think he has also given people like me reason to understand why President Trump ultimately fired him.
Well, and it is a problem when you consider reality winner is facing charges. And look, she broke the law. No one's saying that she shouldn't be.
By the way, that's a real person's name. People are getting very confused.
Yeah, her middle name is Lee. Leigh, I think that is her name. Trish?
Well, look, I think that basically this gives average Americans some real insight into how the swamp works. I mean, the idea that the guy who's head of the FBI wakes up in the middle of the night, thinks he needs to call his buddy at Columbia, who can then leak all this information to the press. I think that is very disturbing, and it shows you really what our president right now is up against. The other big thing that I find interesting in all this is, yes, all this information got leaked, but you know what didn't get leaked? The fact that the president wasn't under investigation. So I think it's very telling that all the other sides of the story, the James Comey side of the story, comes out. I do think he's in for more trouble, though, the president is, because you have so many holdovers there in the FBI, people that liked James Comey a lot, people in the intelligence community that are not on this president's side, and there could be a whole lot more where this came from.
And what else did James Comey leak to his other friends? That's
you mean the ones that else, he didn't call at 3 a.m.?
What else is out there? If he had no problem giving this to his
The only thing that matters is what Robert Mueller finds and whether or not they're going to be criminal.
Or if he shields
something
Comey.
criminal happen. That's all that matters.
All right. So we could expect the president to have more to say, right? He might. At a joint news conference later today where he could give his first in-person reaction to Comey's testimony. I would imagine reporters are going to ask about it. This follows a lengthy break from Twitter, although he tweeted a couple times today. Going nearly 48 hours with the tweet, though, there was a gap. We'll talk about the strategy. And despite all the buzz surrounding Comey's testimony, the White House and congressional Republicans say it's business as usual when it comes to their agenda. Will they get it done, or will the Comey saga remain a distraction? Stay with us.
This is a Fox News alert. We are awaiting more reaction from President Trump to former FBI Director James Comey's testimony. That will likely happen at a joint news conference this afternoon. The vice president broke his silence this morning on Twitter, but he stayed silent the entire day yesterday, instead leaving all the counterpunching to his surrogates. The official response came courtesy of President Trump's private attorney, Mark Kasowitz, and the tweet storm came in real time from President Trump's son, Donald Jr., including these. Did I miss something, or did Comey just say he asked a friend to leak information to the press? Is this a joke? And I'm pretty sure that Comey's testimony put his own, quote, character on trial. Leaks, admitted weakness, Lynch double standard. Come on now. You know, I want to start with you, Geraldo. I actually loved this tweet from Donald Jr. He said, knowing my father for 39 years, when he orders or tells you to do something, there is no ambiguity. You will know exactly what he means. I think the American public at large knows that President Trump doesn't mince words. He's not a hard man to read. I actually think that's one of the best arguments against Comey so far.
I absolutely agree, and I think that in the big scandal over the leak, we're overlooking the lead. What is the lead? The lead is, and as an attorney, I can tell you, there is no way, shape, or form that President Trump obstructed justice as that is defined in the federal statute. He had no guilty intent. He was trying to get Comey to go easy on Mike Flynn, a war hero who lost his living, who really got savaged in this whole deal. He was being compassionate. He did not ask Comey to dump the Russiagate investigation, so-called. This is not obstruction. Any pundit from this moment on who utters the word impeachment is recklessly irresponsible. There is no way that this is a high crime or misdemeanor as defined by James Comey, a hostile witness. In the worst possible context, Donald Trump is vindicated from the crime of obstruction.
You know, Kennedy, I want to go to you. Mark Kasowitz yesterday, I actually didn't think it was a great idea to have him on air. I wasn't really following it. Most of the American public aren't lawyers. They don't follow all this legal analysis from it. What do you think he needs to do going forward to try and get his agenda back on track?
I think he was actually really smart today to keep focusing on infrastructure. And, you know, of course, there are Republicans and Democrats, as Geraldo pointed out at the top of the show, who are really eager to get infrastructure spending and get a bill passed and get people to work on some of these big projects. As a libertarian, I've got issues with it, but that's not the important thing. What I do think the president did, which was very smart, is that 48-hour hold he had on Twitter. I don't know whose idea that was, but I actually thought it was very smart because it allowed Comey to stay on the front burner. There was nothing that the president himself did yesterday, and his lawyer isn't going to make as much news despite the bluster.
Excellent point.
Yeah, so the Comey story, that's what people were talking about. Yeah. That's what the White House needed from this Senate committee hearing. And, you know, also, the president was able to release a tweet this morning that was somewhat incendiary, and people were waiting for that, but it still allowed the story to develop as it should, and it shows that this White House and the communications team, they are learning. Well,
and it was on point with a singular message now that's coming out of the White House. And while it wasn't a riveting, perhaps, delivery by his attorney yesterday, it got the bones and the meat out there, and so we got to hear it. But it didn't step on the message of what was going on, which is such a great point that you're making, because the president has made that mistake in the past where something is cooking and then he throws water on it with what he's saying, right, and people kind of move on in a different direction.
The advantage he has now is that there's a little empathy out there for him, because anybody looking at this is saying, gosh, you know, this guy really is up against it. And granted, he's not perfect, but you can see just exactly how the system works. You can see that the director of the FBI can call up his buddy and feed a story to the media, and it's going to be completely one-sided. That
sounds so dirty.
No, exactly.
The way you put that.
But you know, now I think your average American sees all this and says, gosh, you know, President Trump is onto something when he's talking about this biased media. And there's a little bit more empathy, which frankly, I think a lot of people have had a hard time mustering up for him. Now that they know what they know, I think there's a chance people are going to say, yeah, you know, he's fighting
and
a battle.
Respect.
I've been very skeptical about this entire thing, and let me tell you, James Comey made me completely jump to President Trump on this side. It's as simple as President Trump wasn't under any investigation for colluding with Russia. That's all I've wanted to know for months and months and months. We have to move on, though. With the Comey testimony in the rearview mirror, what one-level high Trump administration official is saying about the president's agenda going forward, plus high drama across the pond as the party of British Prime Minister Theresa May suffers a stunning election defeat, what this may mean for the political landscape here at home as Democrats hope they can pull off a similar political shocker.
Kennedy, why are you laughing? We'll get to that in a moment. The White House is facing some new questions on whether the fallout from James Comey's testimony could impede President Trump's agenda. But Kellyanne Conway says no way. She tweeted this: "It was business as usual at the White House today. The president hosted an infrastructure summit, a national security meeting, and gave an amazing speech at the Faith and Freedom Coalition conference." Conway also told our Martha McCallum that the administration is moving forward with its agenda. Watch.
So not so much an inspirational message from him to you guys, but just keep on your work.
But he knows we don't need inspiration because nobody there is what the reports say we are, which is downtrodden, staff shakeup. Where is that? We've been hearing this for 4.5 months. It's completely ridiculous. The president continues to move forward with his team every single day.
All of this as the Senate is now considering the House bill to replace Obamacare, and the House just yesterday passed a bill rolling back parts of the Dodd-Frank banking law called the Choice Act. And the markets are appearing to shrug off yesterday's Senate spectacle, with the Dow Jones ending the day mostly higher after hitting a new intraday record. So a lot to talk about with this administration, Megan. That's what you've wanted them to be able to do all along. Not just the president, but Republicans too.
Yes, and yesterday we were talking about some of the response. Sarah Huckabee saying our president isn't a liar. Frank Luntz, the brilliant, messaging person who, I certainly trust his judgment, said it was akin to Richard Nixon saying I'm not a crook. I have thought for a long time they need to get some better communications experts and teams in the White House. I think now is a better time than ever. I do think President Trump was helped with James Comey's testimony yesterday, and now you should take that momentum really going forward and get some new people in place.
All right, so Geraldo, I've heard you time and time again refer to the president as your friend, and as a friend,
love the guy.
Have you talked with him about communications? And I know he's just gotten rid of some people. He's making
only
some shifts.
Indirectly, and I think that one of the reasons the president follows me, and I'm very honored that he does, is that I try to give honest advice on the whole Twitter thing. I think a couple of things. Even though he is absolutely exonerated on the obstruction of justice, there is no doubt, but that was clumsy of him to meet with James Comey one-on-one. It was sloppy. It was unprofessional. He put himself in peril. It never should have happened, and I blame his staff. I think if he had someone like Corey Lewandowski, the guy who ran the campaign initially, if he had someone like that around, he'd say, boss, you can't meet with the FBI director you're going to look like Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton on that damn tarmac. What are you doing here? And some of these tweets also, he needs a Twitter editor-in-chief. He needs someone to say, boss, you don't tweet out about your wires being tapped in Trump Tower unless you got it cold proof of it.
Right.
He creates so many of his own problems. He needs, Megan is saying that this is the time to shake it up. I so agree with that. Now is the time where you got to go to Wimpy Reince Priebus and the other guys that are around him. I mean, he shouldn't have to go to Steve Bannon and all that drama. He should have like a professional, just regular person around to say, you really want to say, like my wife says, or like my brother Craig says, before I tweet out something, if it's going to cost me my job.
Yeah, you've had some
I think you've
I wouldn't even go to
I
was underdressed.
One of the personalities and very defined ideas on things. But there's a difference between being the entrepreneur and then being the CEO, right? Because as CEO of a publicly held company, you answer to shareholders. You answer to your board. You got to get the London office to get along with the Paris office, which has got to get along with the Dallas office. And so you build consensus. The difference in what he has done, and he has done it amazingly well, he's been the guy in charge the entire time. And so I think this is a shift, and there's a learning curve. And you are absolutely right, Geraldo. He needs a team around him. He needs a management team that can put all his ideas into place and get it done.
I have a Twitter in chief. It's Kennedy. Harris, delete.
Middle of the night, 6 in the morning, she sends me stuff. We go through it. We whiteboard, we spitball, we red pencil, and then the brilliance emerges.
From you.
But you know what? We're going to talk about this a little bit later.
Tweeting, though.
It's not, but he's also got Melania coming in, and we're going to talk about that a little later in the show. It's interesting because as Kellyanne Conway is pointing out the day that he had yesterday, the White House has been through so much, and in a short amount of time, they are more battle-hardened than any new administration. And because of that, it allows you to develop some new, stronger muscles.
Brilliant communications experts are just that. They're brilliant. I've been around not many, because there aren't many, but they do exist. And I've said from day one I could send over some great names. A brilliant communications expert.
Did you really offer?
I 100% will offer.
You're a giver.
But a beautiful communications expert, brilliant, excuse me, can, and when you are in the line of fire, when you're under the heat in a time like that, not have your talking point be he's not a liar.
If anyone knows brilliant and beautiful Meghan McCain, it is you. And I think that they would be wise to open those emails from you. And we've got an election shocker across the pond. Listen to this. Let's switch gears and dive into crumpets. British Prime Minister Theresa May announcing plans to keep her job and cobble together a new coalition government after a brief meeting with the Queen this morning. This after May's high-stakes gamble calling for a snap election that backfired bigly, causing her Conservative Party to lose its majority in Parliament. All this ahead of critical Brexit talks with the European Union. That's happening in just 10 days. Democrats pouncing on the blow to Theresa May. A FoxNews.com headline reading, quote, UK election has Democrats hoping they can send Trump a strong message. The piece goes on to say the left would like to see what happened in Great Britain happen here at home. Democrats looking for some mojo as we get closer to next year's midterms, not to mention the Georgia special election that's happening in less than 2 weeks that some see as a bellwether. But now the big question, is there a message in this for the president? Geraldo, there are so many parallels to be drawn between the election in the UK and what's happening here at home. And, Democrats are hoping that the Conservative Party losing some of their luster will translate over here. But there are a lot of Republicans in this country saying, not so fast. Theresa May is essentially a British Hillary Clinton with no charisma, bad timing, and no political intuition. And
it is to translate what happened in Great Britain just now to what's happening here. When I was there filming Sharknado, of all things, and very close to London Bridge and where that awful incident
You said
happened.
that out loud.
It's true. That's what I was doing there. But my hotel, right there, right by the big wheel, whatever, the London wheel, whatever, where I forget they call it. It was staffed almost entirely by people from Eastern Europe, members of the EU nations. They were Romanians there, Bulgarians there, Poles there. The whole staff, all of those people will be barred under Brexit. They will no longer have that kind of fluidity to come back and forth. I think that what this reflects is buyer's remorse over Brexit. I think that if you were going to give those, I think that this was as close to a re-referendum on Brexit as you're going to get. And Theresa May, she's not very charismatic.
Yeah,
I mean, all due respect, she makes the Queen look like a swinger. I mean, she's so kind of dull. But I mean, no disrespect.
Well, she's no Nigel Farage either. Think about how Nigel led that movement.
But there is no more of those guys. Where are those fiery, let's get out of there?
Boris Johnson, so that's what we have to ask ourselves. Who is the next prime minister going to be? Because it seems as though Theresa May is so politically damaged. And will that person work with President Trump to make the most out of Brexit?
We should also explain that Corbyn, who's up against her, is akin to Bernie Sanders.
He's very
winning
Sanders.
and getting
He's left of Bernie Sanders.
Just for people who maybe aren't following this as closely, paying more attention to American politics, it would be as bizarre as if Bernie Sanders were elected president in this country.
Yeah, I mean, you have Theresa May going to the Queen to try to help her galvanize her party. So that says a lot.